billionaire financier Carl Icahn joining me right now. Carl, of course, an early backer of Donald Trump and not one to scoff at his chances. And he's been advising the president-elect, we're told, on a variety of issues. Might have such a role in a Trump administration. Who knows? I would imagine Carl does. Carl, very good to have you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Neil.
Do you or would you entertain a role in a Trump administration?
I doubt it. I said before that I would at all entertain being Secretary of Treasury or take a full role. I mean, as an advisor of some type, perhaps publicly, perhaps not. But, you know, I have 10, 15 companies to run, and I'm not going to move to Washington or anything like that.
It is a big adjustment when you give that up to join the public sector, right? I mean, much has been made of what Mr. Trump might have to do now, whether put into a blind trust or whether he gives it to the kids. He's going to be closely scrutinized on those relatimes. Does it complicate matters for him?
Yeah, look, certainly being president and getting what Donald can get done actually is I think, very important for the country. I think my giving advice can help somewhat, I hope, and I tend to do it if Donald wants to listen. And to some extent, you know, I talked to him throughout this campaign. But I tell you that people, the pundits, all wonder what happened, and I think it was extremely simple. That if you think about a middle-class guy working out in the Middle West, the real question is why, not why did he vote for him, but why wouldn't you vote for him? Why would you keep this going with this establishment? And I don't know if you read this editorial I wrote in the Wall Street Journal today.
I did.
Yeah, and I think it really comes to a point. I think it is, shall we say, a manifestation of what's going on and why this economy is not working. And
well, you got to the point of about, you know, regulations, and particularly in the oil and energy-related industry, biofuels. I mean, that there are all sorts of ways the government has acted as a huge impediment to innovation and business and progress. But you think Donald Trump should address that sort of thing, which he appears to be willing to do right in those first 100 days.
Well, you know, I've talked to Donald a number of times on these crazy regulations that you have from the EPA is the quintessential example of why people don't invest, why corporations don't invest. You're not going to invest when you have insane, literally, and I'm not exaggerating, insane regulations where they want companies and refineries, in particular, to have to be responsible for blending ethanol. And we're not even talking about the ethanol standard. We're not talking about the RFS, really. You're talking about the fact that they're asking companies to be responsible for blending when nobody will buy a blended gasoline from a refinery. You know, we own one. But that's just one example of what goes on in the country with these unbelievable regulations. Now, you need regulations, Neil. I don't in any way say that companies should not be regulated to some extent. In fact, I think you need DoddFrank to some extent more than even Donald does. But
so you don't think, by the way, on Dodd-Frank, you don't think he should torpedo that?
I don't think you torpedo it completely.
Okay.
I think Wall Street was responsible for 08. I say that in the editorial, and now you're going to get another 08.
Yeah, you're talking about the mortgage-backed securities and all this other nonsense.
Yeah, and that should have been regulated. Yeah. It was obvious that that was going to blow up one day. Everybody agreed to it. And just the same thing now, that with business today, the problem is that you are completely strangled by too many regulations done by people that have no understanding whatsoever of business and the ramifications of it. As a result of those regulations, you don't have business spending. I mean, Hillary Clinton herself said we should unleash the great amount of capital in our businesses, and she said that, but then she went on to say, but we must regulate them and we must tax them. Well, obviously, business is not investing. Now, if it doesn't invest, you have worn-out tools. You have worn-out tools, you don't have productivity. You don't have productivity, you can't compete. It's as simple as that.
Then what do you think, Carl, if that if he puts the priority on dealing with these regulations over tax cuts. There's some hints, and all they are hints is that he might not move right away on taxes.
No, I think they're not mutually exclusive whatsoever. In other words, I think you will have tax cuts on the corporate level, for sure. And to some extent, you're going to have tax cuts. I mean, look, I am the first to tell you, I think there will be big bumps on the road. Nothing goes easily. You know, this is a democracy. You have a Congress. But we have done nothing for 8 years to help business. In fact, business is perceived to be at war. Government's perceived to be at war with business. So therefore, it's not a great puzzle. All these pundits, well, what's going on? Why isn't there productivity? There isn't, because we don't invest. And you don't invest because you're perceived to be at war with government. The government comes in and drives you crazy. We finally got rid of that. We got rid of this albatross around our neck. And that's why I was with Trump right from the beginning. And I believed he'd win, because the middle-class worker who doesn't have a good job, knows how to read very well, he knows how to work with see the Internet. Donald's an extremely charismatic guy. I mean, you know, I said that to Donald right at the beginning. You know, he's a charismatic guy. He knows really how to get the crowd behind him. And his message is right on. The only one that could defeat Donald, that could have defeated Donald, was Donald, and he didn't do it. He didn't defeat himself.
Well, you know, you were saying that when no one else was, so my hat's off to you on that, Carl. But back to this role that you might play, you say an advisor that would be like a kitchen cabinet type advisor without title per se, or are you poo-pooing this notion of a formal role, either in a senior staff or cabinet?
You know, I'd have to look. I'm not. No, I definitely would never take a formal role. It's not my nature anyway. I mean, look. I'm 80 years old. I never reported to anyone in my life. That's not my nature. So I could never get involved in Washington, into the bureaucracy of that. Look, I was offered partnerships at a lot of Wall Street firms, and I would never take them because I don't really like these board meetings. Our whole structure, you know, and I've discussed this with you, Neil, that a lot of the structure of corporate America is really wrong-headed. Where you have these boards, where you have people on these boards, and they're nice people, they're good people, but it's almost ludicrous that you have a lot of people on a board advising a CEO who's doing it for 20 years. And theoretically, I'm a critic of many CEOs, but theoretically, they know what they're doing, and you got people there who are on 6 boards, and yeah, maybe they're smart guys. I'm not against them.